When the house finally grows quiet and the screens surrender their glow, you can hear a subtler weather move through you, breath like a tide, thoughts like birds finding their evening branch, a soft fatigue combing the edges of the day. Tonight, don't try to win sleep. Let sleep find you the way fog finds a valley, slow, inevitable, tender. The Buddha offered a lantern for this crossing, the noble Eightfold path, not a relic for museums, but a living way you can walk in the dark, step by gentle step. Right view to see what truly matters at midnight. Right intention to aim your heart toward kindness, even in dreams. Right speech to speak softly to your own body. Right action and right livelihood to lighten what you bring to the pillow. Right effort to try without tightening. Right mindfulness to rest in the present moment's quiet cradle. Right concentration to let attention settle like moonlight on a still lake. Lay down the day. Place one hand on your belly, one on your heart, and let the breath become a small boat carrying you inward. If this simple way of traveling from worry to wonder feels like home, press play, close your eyes, and let the path walk you. And if this calm voice and gentle practice serve you, subscribe to Buddhism for Sleep for nightly teachings, sleep meditations, and soft reminders to wake up kindly tomorrow. May you drift, may you heal, may you be held by the kind dark. At night, the world loosens its definitions and the edges of everything blur into the kind dark. The window, a square of hush, the fan humming like a mantra that remembers you when you forget yourself. And the breath returns as a small, faithful tide that rises and falls without applause. And here, in this uncluttered hour, right view is not a doctrine to argue, but a way of seeing that unknots the mind's fist. A lantern you carry into the soft interior of your own experience. Beginning with a simple bow to what is happening. Now this ache behind the eyes, this thought that keeps circling, this restlessness mapping old roots through the body because right view asks for honesty before it offers ease. Asks us to name the truth that life can be stressful, uncertain, bittersweet, and that our suffering grows, blooms, and withers according to causes and conditions. Not as a punishment, but as weather. And if weather is the metaphor, then tonight we are learning to be sky, not storm, to allow the passing of sensations, feelings, perceptions, impulses, like clouds that arrive, transform, and depart. For impermanence is not a threat to rest, but the very gateway to it. Since the moment you feel your chest soften on an exhale, you witness change firsthand. The way the bed receives your weight and then more of it, the way the jaw holds and then releases, the way a tight thought loosens the moment it is seen clearly. And seeing clearly is the heart of right view, a tender X-ray of habit that reveals how grasping and pushing make the night noisy. How the mind reaches forward for a perfect pillow, a perfect future, a perfect self, and recoils from the imperfect now that is already here. And in that rich recoil ballet, the nervous system stays lit like a storefront. But when you notice the pattern with warmth rather than war, the lights dim, you learn to whisper inside. This too is a visitor, not a verdict, and the visitor bows and moves on because you are no longer feeding it with argument. So begin by feeling the breath at the nostrils, cool on the in-breath, warmer on the out-breath, a subtle temperature prayer that keeps time. Let your tongue rest on the floor of your mouth. Float your eyes back in their sockets as if they were leaves on still water. Uncross your attention from the knotted threads of today's story and lay it down like a shawl at the edge of the bed, because you do not need to carry a character into sleep. tonight you may be simply a breathing animal in a safe burrow of blankets. And even if safety feels far away, the body can learn it one signal at a time. Hand on belly, hand on heart, a small circuit of kindness. Inhale, meeting belly like tide meeting shore. Exhale, retreating with a long, thin sigh that lengthens by the quiet arithmetic of trust. And as you listen to that arithmetic, you practice the other half of right view, cause and effect without blame. The understanding that the mind-body is a garden responding to what you plant there. That caffeine at dusk, blue light at midnight. Arguments at any hour, all throw pebbles into the lake of rest, and the ripples take time to settle. While a sunset walk, a warm bath, a page of gratitude, even a dimmed lamp can comb the water smooth. This is not moralism, it is physics of attention. And attention is the brush that paints your inner weather, so paint with soft strokes. Notice how the day is still trying to write itself across your forehead, and with each exhale, say to the day, "Thank you for your effort, you may rest now." And to yourself say, "You too, you have done enough," which is a radical sentence in a world that worships the unfinished list. But right view bows to reality rather than perfection. It points out that no moment of your life has been permanent. Therefore, no moment is final, and this recognition loosens the grip of urgency, like a tight ribbon that slips free and falls in a gentle spiral. And you feel the scalp soften, the shoulders drop like heavy curtains, and you enter a sensible ritual of surrender, not collapse, but communion. A small evening liturgy. Place the phone to charge far from reach, as if setting down an argument. Rinse your face as if rinsing your name. Smooth the sheet as if smoothing the mind. Lie down as if taking refuge under the wide robe of the present, and invite the senses to be your teachers, the grain of cotton, the echo of a distant car, the sweet blank taste inside the mouth after water, the meaningful silence between heartbeats. That classroom has no exam, and yet its lessons are exacting. Here is clinging, here is aversion, here is the third way, allowing. The way a window allows moonlight without effort, the way a field allows fog without negotiation. And because the mind is a storyteller, it will wander. It will stitch old fears to new worries and call the quilt me. And this is where right view is exquisite. For it does not shout stop, but whispers look. And looking is enough to unmask the costume. Thought seen as thought begins to dissolve at its edges like sugar in warm tea. And when the edges soften, the center gives up its throne. And the soft mind does not need to win sleep. It simply becomes quiet enough for sleep to find it. And perhaps a wave of sadness arrives then, or an ember of anger. And right view greets them, "Hello, old friends. You arise because of conditions, and you will fade because of conditions. I am not your jailer, and you are not my judge. Stay if you must, go when you will, meanwhile I will breathe." And in that unforced hospitality, the guests lose their sharpness. They sit down, they share their secret, which is that they were always calls for care. And care can be simple, a palm's warmth, a phrase repeated in the inward ear. May I be safe, may I be kind, may I be free from unnecessary struggle tonight. If someone else's face appears in your mind, a face that stung you or brightened you today, you can offer them the same phrase, not to be noble but to be light, because grudges weigh what pillows cannot carry, and forgiveness, practical, in progressor lifts half the load. So say quietly, may you be safe, may you be kind, may you be free from your unnecessary struggle tonight, and then return to the tide. Noticing the little pause after the outbreath where nothing needs to happen. A small holy zero where the future has not yet been drawn and the past has already forgiven itself. Dwell there if you like, count if you like. Not as a contest, but as a lullaby for the prefrontal chorus that never stops rehearsing, and if sleep still plays shy. Right view reminds you that success is not measured by how fast you drift, but by how tenderly you relate. That insomnia is not a personal failure, but a weather system that'll pass more easily if you stop punching the clouds. So lie like a shoreline that lets every wave arrive, break and return, or imagine a bowl placed just beneath the throat, catching each breath as a clear ladle of water. Or picture the moon balancing in the lake of your attention and any ripple that disturbs it smoothing. Smoothing, smoothing. And remember that wisdom is not an idea but a felt alignment. So check the body compassar, the shoulders arguing with gravity. Is the brow still wearing yesterday's crown? Can the fingers uncurl as if releasing a little bird? Can the mouth hint at a half smile born of relief rather than performance hand? In that microgeometry of kindness, you find macro freedom. The kind that sees through the loud illusion of I am my thoughts to the soft reality I am the space that hears them. And the space is vast enough to hold a planet's worth of worry and still remain unbroken. And the night loves you for remembering this. The night places its cool hand on your forehead and says, rest. Child of the moving world, you are allowed to be unfinished. You are allowed to be new in the morning. You are allowed to be carried by breath alone. And if the mind asks for something to do, give it a gentle task. Watch 10 exhalations lengthen like silk. Count petals falling from an invisible flower. Trace gratitude from feet to head. Thank you toes for keeping me upright. Thank you calves for climbing. Thank you knees for bending. Thank you hips for holding. Thank you belly for digesting my days. Thank you lungs for their patient tides. Thank you heart for its red metronome. Thank you shoulders for lifting. Thank you neck for turning toward what matters. Thank you face for feeling wind and rain and laughter. Thank you eyes for their faithful windows. Thank you mind for trying so hard to help hand when you reach the crown of the head. Let a small light open and pour down through you like quiet rain, washing the chalkboard of the day clean, and feel how right view is flowering now into the body as trust. A view that doesn't live in the head alone, but in the way the mattress receives you, the way you let yourself be received. And because the path is circular in the gentlest sense, the more clearly you see, the easier it is to release. The easier it is to release, the more clearly you see. And this is how you become a soft witness to your own becoming, not pushing the river, not damming it, simply floating on the raft of breath beneath the slow lantern of attention, until even the watcher grows drowsy and the lantern lowers and the raft drifts into a wide bay of quiet, where dreams will come and go like visiting deer, and you will meet them with the same view, kind and clear. The view that knows everything changes and yet nothing is missing, and as sleep gathers you like a shore, right view lingers at the threshold, smiling, knowing that the way you rest is the way you live, and tonight you are living with a gaze that heals. Right intention is the gentle steering of the heart in the dark, the quiet agreement you make with yourself about the kind of being you will be while nobody is watching, and at night it becomes the softest compass, turning you from the worry-hungry paths toward a lane lit by kindness, harmlessness, and letting go. Because intention is not a clenched wish or a forced promise, but a direction that breath chooses with you, an inward tilt of the whole body-mind toward ease, and you can feel it now as you lie down. The bed holding you like shoreline holds a tide, your palms loosening their grasp on the day, your jaw unhooking from its old arguments. And in this poised surrender you begin to plant the seeds of the night. May my heart be kind. May my words be gentle. May I release what I do not need. And these are not slogans, but living vows that shape the weather of sleep. Because right intention aims the mind like a lantern, not to burn through the dark, but to recognize it as a room that can be walked with care. And you remember how so much suffering comes from the crooked intentions we absorb without noticing to prove, to defend, to win, to rehearse old battles, and how each of those stances hardens the pillow and narrows the breath. So here, under this roof of quiet, you are invited to choose again, to make the elegant decision to mean well toward yourself and all beings, not in grand gestures, but in the ordinary miracle of the next exhale, for intention and breath love each other. The breath asking where shall we go, and the intention answering toward gentleness, toward harmlessness, toward release, and the body obeys with relief, the shoulders lowering, the stomach softening, the brow smoothing like a lake after a wind passes. And perhaps a question arises about what intention looks like at rest, since it is easy to think intention only belongs to daylight, to to-do lists and conversations, but night has its own economy of choice, and right intention in the dark is the way you speak inside, the way you greet the guest of a memory that arrives late, the way you refuse to weaponize the mind against yourself, the way you decide to stop building a courtroom in your chest and instead open a tea house, where whatever comes is met with warmth and leaves lighter than it arrived. And so you practice the first fragrance of right intention, kindness, which is not sentimentality but a stability of goodwill. And you let the phrase, "May I be kind," travel on the breath to every room of you, hands to feet to scalp to the quiet space behind the eyes. And the nervous system hears it like rain on a metal roof, steady, uncomplicated, trustworthy. And in that rain, the small fires of the day go out, the burnt smell of hurry clears, and you realize that kindness toward yourself is contagious inside. The heart learns it from the lungs, the jaw learns it from the hands, the mind learns it from the heart, and soon even your dreams will learn to be gentler, because intention sets the tone for the theater of the night. And if kindness is the first fragrance, harmlessness is the second. The vow to do no harm becomes the decision to stop injuring the body with restless postures, to stop injuring the mind with catastrophizing rehearsals, to stop injuring the heart with old blame. And so you arrange yourself as if you were laying down a child you love, careful with the neck, generous with the blankets, patient with the positions the body tries, and each time a harsh thought arrives, why didn't you? How could you? What if? And begins sharpening itself. You notice the blade and put it down, not by force, but by remembering you prefer soft tools at midnight, a wooden spoon of breath, a woolen scarf of attention, and harmlessness also extends beyond the skin. A wish that tonight your rest harms no one, that the energy you weave in the dark will rise tomorrow free of the splinters of resentment. And in that wish, the day to come already becomes more walkable, because intention time travels. It sends emissaries into mourning and invites them back with news. Go lightly, speak softly, move slowly, it will be enough. And the third fragrance of right intention is letting go. Renunciation not as door refusal, but as the wisdom to put down what cannot be carried into sleep. The heavy coat of self-importance, the backpack of endless choosing, the pockets full of tiny comparisons that clink and clatter long after the lights are off. And you practice letting go in a body way and a mind way, loosening the hands, loosening the breath, loosening the story that keeps reaching out past the walls of the room, towards screens and scores and somebody's approval. And each release buys you an ounce of quiet. And many ounces make a night, and perhaps you have known the opposite. A night where intention was left on the counter with the keys, and sleep had to negotiate with a mind still busy with old deals. So tonight you bring intention with you like a small, good candle, and every time you exhale, you feed it a little air. Small flames steadying, small lights saying yes to what is simple and kind. And here, in the slope towards sleep, you might try an exercise of tenderness. List the beings you carry in your chest, friends. Strangers, the one who challenged you today, the one you miss, the one you envy, and on each exhale, offer them this. May you rest. May you be safe. May you be unburdened. May you wake refreshed. And you will notice that goodwill costs nothing and pays in unknotted muscles. And if resistance appears, as it often does, I don't want to wish them well meet, even that with kindness. May this resistance be seen. May it soften in time. I will not fight it tonight. I will keep the door open and the light on in case it wants to join the gentler weather. And so you learn that right intention is not a verdict but a practice of alignment. Again and again choosing the current you prefer, the current that moves downstream without scraping the riverbed. And because intention is subtle, you can anchor it in simple rituals. A palm over the heart to remind the mind whom it serves. A breath counted from 1 to 5 to remind the body it is led. A sentence repeated like a bead on a molitonite. I lean toward kindness. I choose not to harm. I put down what I cannot carry, and, as you repeat these, notice how the room seems to agree. The walls no longer press in. The ceiling rests a little higher. The bed learns your shape and you learn the bed's. And the small noises of the night become companions and not alarms. Because a clear intention transforms even the soundscape. It teaches the ear to sort between danger and the ordinary music of the world. And with danger absent, the body unlocks thresholds it guards by day. The viscera do their quiet repairs. The brain washes itself in dream rivers. The immune sentries stroll their moonlit rounds. And all of this healing is made smoother when intention removes the tangle of inner oppositions. When your being is not pulling in several directions at once. And if a memory of failure visits you, an unfinished task, a sharp word, you said right intention, guides you through a two-step forgiveness. First, the breath that says it happened and it's over. Second, the vow that says tomorrow I will try to be gentler. This is not denial, but gardening. You are clearing the bed of stones so seeds can root. And seeds do not require speeches to sprout. Only water, light, and time, and your water is breath. Your light is intention, your time is this night. And in this practical mercy, you discover a dignity softer than pride. A willingness to continue without the armor that chafes. A capacity to be led by something quieter than fear. And when fear does show up, it is part of the family. After all, you let right intention hold its hand. Not to drag it into bravery, but to walk beside it to the edge of the bed. To show it the view from the window, the way the city rests. The way even the stars look like intentions pinned to velvet. And fear sometimes sighs then and loosens its hold. Having been respected rather than shamed. And this too is harmlessness in action. This too is kindness ripening into poise. And as you drift, you might plant one more seed. May whatever I dream tonight incline me toward wisdom and care. May I wake with a gentle mouth and a clear eye. May my first words be soft enough for someone else's morning. And with that, you are not controlling dreams, but inviting them to be teachers. And dreams often accept invitations when they are phrased with love, and if sleep still hesitates at the door. Right intention reminds you that you need not push or plead. You can rest in the intention itself, breathing within it the way a bird rests within the geometry of its nest. And in this resting, you are already practicing the life you wish to live. The life where effort and ease are partners, where purpose is not a whip but a river, where goodness is not a performance but a temperature, and your temperature is lowering now. Your metabolism hums the lullaby of repair, and your mind, no longer tyrant, becomes tender attendant, checking the blankets, dimming the inner light, whispering the orientation once more, kindness, harmlessness, letting go. And as the repetition deepens the trance of wellness, you find yourself floating in a space where thought thins and feeling widens, where intention is not spoken but breathed. And from this wide place, the world tomorrow will look more possible, not because it changed overnight, but because you did, by choosing where to aim your heart while the night did its quiet work, by refusing the old contracts of harshness, by signing a new one written in the ink of moonlight. And as you cross the threshold into sleep, right intention does not leave. It sits like a sentinel made of silk at the door of your rest, smiling, humming a tune only the kind can hear, guarding nothing because nothing needs guarding when the heart is turned the right way, only blessing, which is the softest kind of watchfulness. And you are blessed now by your own choosing, the way a field is blessed by the angle of the sun, the way a seed is blessed by the good earth that receives it, the way a traveler is blessed by the road that finally turns toward home. Right speech at night is the art of speaking to the body and the mind, as you would to a small animal that has finally come to your open palm, a tender practice that begins not with words but with listening, because before the tongue moves there is a weather of thought, and before thought there is a hum of feeling. And if you are quiet enough, you can hear the way your nervous system has been addressed all day, commanded, criticized, hurried, and you can choose another language now, a gentler dialect made of breath and patience and the kind of honesty that never wounds. For right speech is not only about what passes your lips toward others, it is also about what passes your inner lips toward yourself. The private sentences you repeat in dim rooms, the verdicts you issue as you wash your face, the prophecies you announce as you look at the clock and decide whether sleep will love you. And tonight you practice a new liturgy, where speech becomes a bridge and not a blade, where every phrase is soaked in goodwill and every silence is full of care. So begin by letting the tongue rest. Lay it like a leaf on the floor of the mouth and notice how the jaw loosens as if released from a long trial. Notice how the throat widens into a small cathedral, and into that space you may guide a sentence soft as down. May I be safe, may I be at ease, may I be free from the weight I do not need tonight. And as you speak it inside, the ears of the body listen, the shoulders listen, the heart listens, because they have waited all day for words that are not tasks, for words that bless rather than bind. And the blessing is simple. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be unfinished. You are allowed to be here without explaining the past or rehearsing the future. And if your mind replies with its old counter-arguments, you do not argue back. You practice right speech with your own thinking by answering in a tone that does not escalate. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. And for tonight, we will rest. And that one gentle sentence often dissolves the courtroom, because the inner judge is just a frightened clerk who has mistaken noise for protection. And when kindness arrives with authority, the gavel grows quiet. And right speech also means editing the script you hand to the body, retiring phrases like "I can't sleep," "Tonight will be ruined," "Tomorrow will break me," and writing a kinder text, "My body knows how to rest, even if it rests by degrees. This night can be a friend. I do not need to win sleep for it to find me. I can lie in peace and be healed even before I dream." And while you are revising, notice the sentences you speak about others in the privacy of your skull, the tiny darts of resentment, the flashlit stories where you are right and they are wrong, and consider whether those darts pierce your own hand first, whether that storytelling tightens your breath and steals the quiet you claim you want, and if so, let right speech invite you to a different story, a brief, brave generosity where you say, "May they also find ease. May they also be released from the knots that made today difficult." And this is not surrendering your boundaries. It is freeing your pillow from the thorns of hatred. For hatred never sleeps and keeps the whole house awake, while goodwill closes windows and dims lights and draws curtains that smell like clean rain. And because right speech includes truth, you do not hide from the fact that harm exists, that conversations go wrong, that pain may need a voice. You simply choose a time and a tone that do not injure you. You tell the truth to your journal or to your breath without varnish and without venom. "I was hurt today. I felt ignored. I was sharp with someone I love." And then you add the restorative clause, "And tonight I will lay this down. I will meet it tomorrow with steadier hands." And in that clause you feel a hinge creak and swing, the hinge between rumination and release. And through that doorway you carry yourself toward sleep, not with chatter but with lucid kindness, the most medicinal language you know. And perhaps you will speak out loud a little, barely above a whisper, because sometimes the body trusts voiced sound more than silent thought. And you can let the voice be slow and low and warm, the way you might sing to a child in a train car to hide the thunder outside. Simple lines repeated until the nervous system learns the melody. Breathe in. Dear heart, breathe out. Dear heart, you are safe, you are home. You are held, and if singing feels far, you can let the breath itself be a sentence. The inhale saying here and the exhale saying now. And between them the punctuation of a small pause that tells your cells there is no emergency. And as this grammar of breath takes root, you will notice how the rest of your speech aligns. The way you ask your shoulders, "Would you like to drop?" The way you invite your eyes to float back like leaves on a slow river. The way you negotiate kindly with your thoughts, not silencing them, but offering them a softer job description. You may wander, you may return. You do not have to produce a problem to stay employed, and your thoughts, relieved, often set down their clipboards and curl like cats at the edges of awareness. Because right speech has created a house where no one needs to shout to be heard. And in such a house, silence becomes a healing sound. Not an absence, but a presence, the hush after the word that completes a blessing. And you begin to understand that right speech is also right silence. The refusal to add fuel to the fire of agitation. The wisdom to let the final sentence be short and sweet and final for now. Enough, good night, thank you. And if the mind insists on a last meeting, schedule it for morning with a tender note. I will listen to you well after sunrise, but now the body must dream. And because right speech is timely speech, it honors the clock of the organism. It knows that midnight is for repair, not debate. That healing loves quiet more than cleverness. And so you become skillful with lullaby scale words. Words sized for the soft animal of the body, not the bright theatre of the day. And in this intimacy you may notice old phrases arising from childhood, some soothing, some sharp, and you have permission to keep the soothing ones and rewrite the rest, to record a new bedtime myth in which you are not a failing hero on a doomed quest, but a wanderer who found a calm orchard and decided to sleep beneath the trees. An orchard tended by the Eightfold path itself, where right speech is the wind in the leaves saying what is true and kind and necessary and no more. And what is necessary tonight is very little: a place to lie down, the courage to soften, the humility to let a wiser quiet work on you while you yield. And this is why so many traditions have night prayers and soft recitations, because speech braided with breath can carry the mind across thresholds that thought alone cannot cross. And you can make your own prayer now if you like, not because anyone demands it, but because the heart loves rhythm. The way waves love the shore may. I forgive what I can, may I learn from what remains. May my dreams be teachers, may my waking be gentle. May I walk tomorrow speaking light nef. Tears come with these words. Let them be part of the sentence, a salt grammar that cleans as it tells. And if laughter comes because the day's burdens look oddly shaped in this new light, let that laughter be a bell that dismisses class. You are done studying your faults for now, you are enrolled in rest. And when the bell fades, you can listen for subtler languages. The body speaks in loosenings and heaviness. The mattress speaks in welcome, the room speaks in barely their currents of air. Even the darkness speaks in the way it does not demand to be seen. And all of this speech is clean, free of gossip and malice and idle harm. The very qualities right speech asks us to avoid by day, and practicing them at night is a promise you make to the morning, that your tongue will remember this softness when it meets a stranger, that your words will carry the echo of this simple mercy when the clock accelerates and someone you love needs you to be slow. And if you worry you will forget, place a phrase by the door of sleep like a pair of shoes, something you can step into upon waking. Today I will speak from steadiness. Today I will speak to soothe, not to score. Today I will speak only what is true and helpful when I can, and be silent when I cannot, and trust that memory will find it, because memory loves what is repeated with love. And you are repeating love right now, in syllables and in silences. You are teaching your own mouth to be a soft instrument of shelter, and in time the world hears it and relaxes a little around you, because right speech is contagious in the kindest way. It lowers the noise in every room it enters, and there is a final sweetness in discovering that the best words for sleep are often not words at all, but textures and tones. The roughness of linen, the low hum of a fan, the oceanic hush of your own exhale. And so you let language taper until it becomes a tone, and tone taper until it becomes presence, and presence taper until it becomes the simple weight of you in a kind bed under a kind roof within a kind night. And somewhere in that tapering the last true sentence arrives without effort. Beloved, and when it has been heard all the way down, the tongue is done with its tiny sacred work. The heart is done with its soft announcements. The mind is willing to be carried. And you cross the threshold held by a quiet that speaks nothing but means everything. Right action is the choreography of care unfolding through your ordinary hours. The quiet ethic that shapes what your hands do, where your feet go, how your body leaves a trace in the world. And at night, when you lie down and the day loosens like a braid, right action shows itself as the residue that remains in your muscles, the way your choices echo as either sand or stone in the bed of your nervous system. So begin here with the insight that actions are messages you send to your future self. Little notes tucked into the pockets of tomorrow's mood, and the body reads them faithfully. So when you choose gentleness in the bright noise of noon, you are already making it easier to rest in the velvet hush of midnight. And this is not perfectionism, but physics. Compassion becoming chemistry, decisions becoming circadian music. Because right action by the Buddha's measure is conduct that does not harm, that nourishes trust, that aligns with the thin gold thread of conscience you can feel in your chest if you are quiet. And you can practice it like a musician plays scales, simple, daily, again and again until kindness becomes muscle memory. And at night you feel the benefit as the body releases its guard, because it knows you did not ask it to betray itself today. You did not force it to wear a mask made of lies or wield a tongue that cut for sport. You did not feed it stimulants of cruelty or starve it of dignity. You moved through the world as someone trying to leave no bruises. And now the bed receives you like a friend whose door needs no knock. And your parasympathetic river rises, and sleep finds you by the path of peace you laid hours ago. And because life is complicated and harm happens, right action is not a holy statue too delicate to touch. It is a toolkit for repair. When you notice you have acted from haste or fear, you do not turn the error into a self-hatred that smolders all night. You pick up the tools. You apologize. You make amends. You set a boundary with care. You decide differently next time. These repairs are the lullabies of adulthood, songs that tell the body you are safe in your own guardianship, that you will not abandon yourself to please a moment or punish a memory. And this guardianship continues in small rituals that bend the day toward rest, because right action is also how you treat the animal of your body in a world of sirens. So you move it enough that it remembers it has a pulse. You feed it foods that do not riot in your veins at dusk. You let the sun write its bright signature on your skin in the morning, and you dim the glare when night is supposed to come. You let screens end their sermon early. You drink water like you are returning a lake to itself. You let the spine lengthen after hours of compression. You tidy the room as if you were making a nest for a shy bird. And each of these is not a hack but a kindness. Not a superstition, but a science of signals that say to the body, you are allowed to power down. The world will not end if you do not hold it for 1 hour. You may pass the baton to the deep custodians, who sweep the corridors of the brain and stitch the tissues and catalog memory and soften inflammation and whisper to the immune sentries that peace is possible. And when you have lived this way for a while, rest no longer feels like a negotiation. It feels like gravity, and gravity is a generous God. Always there, always inviting, and perhaps you wonder what right action looks like when the day curls its fists at you. When the inbox roars and the street is unkind and someone you love is caught in their own storm, and your tenderness feels like a thread stretched thin. And the answer is simple in word and brave in practice. Do the next kind thing your strength allows and nothing theatrical. Do it without self-violence. Do it in a way that you can sleep after, which sometimes means saying yes and sometimes means saying no. Sometimes means rising to help and sometimes means lying down to keep your promise to a body that is not a machine. And in this discernment, the heart stays unbroken because it is being used properly, like a lamp pointed where it can illuminate rather than where it will burn. And the lamp of action throws a steady light upon the path of evening. You turn off what can be turned off. You forgive what can be forgiven tonight. You place a bookmark in what cannot. You do one small task that will bless tomorrow, the mug washed, the clothes folded, the note written, and then you stop as a deliberate act of ethics. Because endless productivity is a form of violence against the mammal you are, and right action refuses violence even when it wears the costume of virtue. So you choose completion over compulsion, and the nervous system sighs like a field released from harvest, and your breath becomes a wide road again. And if the mind begins its courtroom reciting should have, could have, tallying missteps, right action enters as a witness for the defense and testifies to the good you did do, to the restraint you practiced, to the moments when you chose not to pass your pain along. And this testimony is not denial, but proportion. A fair accounting that lets the body unclench, because the body believes the story you tell it, and it will not rest while accused. So tell the truest story you can bear. You tried, you learned, you cared, you will care again tomorrow. And tonight you will do nothing heroic but sleep, because sleep itself is a right action, the original harmlessness, the way you become soft enough to stop the little wars that keep the world loud. And in that softness you can remember another stream of right action that runs parallel to commandments, the daily artistry of touch and gesture, the way you set down a cup without slamming, the way you close a door without spite, the way you speak someone's name like it matters, the way you look up from your device and let your eyes meet another pair long enough to say, I see you. And every such act is a stitch in the fabric of belonging that will cover you later when you are cold. And it is astonishing how often insomnia is not a chemical puzzle but a loneliness with itself, a heart that has forgotten its own membership in the gentle republic. And right action is a passport back, stamped by 1,000 small courtesies you gave and received. So at bedtime, before the lights cave in, you can list 3 actions from the day that felt real. I carried a bag for a stranger. I answered an email with patience. I ate when I was hungry and stopped when I was full, and as you do, feel how witness replaces worry, how dignity returns as a low warmth in the chest, how the body, seen and supported, stops bracing for the whip and unspools into trust. And trust is the mattress under every mattress. The reason some people can sleep on a floor and some cannot sleep in silk. And you are weaving that trust with every right action, thread by thread, and because we are porous to one another, your actions are lullabies for other bodies too. Some sleeping one wall away, some a continent. And this is not mysticism but fact. Goodness reduces ambient fear. It quiets rooms you will never enter. And in 1,000 such rooms other hearts will unclench, and kindness will be a little easier tomorrow. Which means your sleep tonight is not selfish. It is part of a commons, the quiet from which gentleness is funded. And so you can let go of any guilt about resting. You can see rest as part of your citizenship in the human village, a way of ensuring you will have something clear to give when morning arrives. And morning will arrive as it always does, with its errands and beauties and heat. And right action will be there again to guide the wrists and the ankles and the mouth. But for now, its instructions are simple and tender. Do what reduces harm inside you. Do what increases honesty without cruelty. Do what leaves your pillow unthroned by rage. And if grief is alive in you, and for many it is a constant weather practice, the action of letting grief move. Cry if crying comes, rock if rocking soothes. Hold a pillow like a friend if that helps. Write a letter to the beloved or to the version of yourself that did not know, and see that none of this is indulgence. It is maintenance. It is ethically clearing the river so the fish of sleep can swim upstream. And if anger is alive in you, and, for many, it is a loyal guard dog that has lost its training, give it a task that does no harm. Breathe it out through the feet. Offer it to the floorboards. Tell it you will listen at dawn. Ask it to protect your boundaries while you rest, and see that this is right action too. The red energy redirected towards stewardship rather than splash. And in this way, the bed becomes an ashram where conduct is ceremony, where you lay down the weapons you smuggled from the day and pick up the tools of night. A glass of water, a lamp to dim, a page to close, a window to crack, a blanket to tuck, a body to thank, and as you thank it, thank you eyes for seeing, mouth for speaking, neck for bearing, shoulders for lifting, hands for holding, heart for drumming, lungs for washing, belly for transforming, legs for carrying you. Complete the circle of action with gratitude, the most stabilizing motion there is. And the last right action before sleep may be simply to place your palm on your chest and say, I will not abandon you. And the chest hears and settles, and your breath lengthens the way a road widens as it leaves the city. And the city recedes, and the countryside opens, and night extends its gentle fields, and you cross them without hurry, having lived in a way that makes crossing easy. And if you did not live that way today, let this be the first evening of the rest of your practice, the night you begin to plant tomorrow's ease with one simple deed after another. And if you forget and stumble and wake at 2 a.m. under the flicker of anxious weather, right action is still with you, steady as a friend, pointing to the next kind thing, which might be water, might be breath, might be forgiveness, might be getting up to write what your mind keeps rehearsing, might be placing your feet on the cool floor to remind yourself you have a body and a room and a life and a choice. And when you choose again, you are already free, and freedom sleeps well, and sleep, when it comes, will braid itself through you like a river through reeds, because you have made yourself reed-like, not rigid, strong and flexible, tuned to the wind of conscience and the hush of night. And what else is right action but this tuning, this willingness to become an instrument played by gentleness until the song of the day fades and the old, kind music of silence takes the lead. Right livelihood is the art of earning without eroding the heart, the practice of letting your work be a bridge for well-being, rather than a drain that empties you into the sea of exhaustion. And at night, when you set your tools down and the body listens for the verdict of the day, right livelihood speaks softly through the way your chest rises and falls, through the way your jaw unclenches or refuses to, through the way your pillow feels heavy or featherlight beneath the stories you tell yourself about how you met the world. For livelihood is not merely a paycheck. It is the shape your energy takes as it leaves you and touches others. And the residue of that touch returns home with you like a scent in your clothes, either clean rain or smoke, either a field after harvest or a factory's dusk. And it matters for sleep because the nervous system keeps a precise ledger. It knows if your hands built what mends or helped what harms. And it knows if you betrayed yourself for the illusion of safety. And it will keep you awake to renegotiate until you begin to align. So begin in honesty, laying down on the bed as if it were an altar where you tell only the truth you can bear, whispering to your own pulse, what I do for bread, does it feed or famish my deeper life? Does it ask me to lie in small ways that accumulate like gravel in the lungs? Does it demand a speed that scuffs my humanity, or does it, even in its difficulty, give me a chance to offer something useful, to keep faith with kindness, to contribute to a web where beings can exhale? and there is no perfect work in a world still learning its own gentleness. Right livelihood is not a purity test, but a compass. A steadying orientation that points you away from trades that profit off poisoning, exploitation, calculated deceit, and toward forms of service, craft, care, creativity, repair, learning, stewardship, and honest exchange. And if your day lives inside an industry that has shadows you cannot change overnight, right livelihood invites you to become a lamp within that house, to reduce harm where you can, to speak truth without venom, to set boundaries where abuse wears the mask of urgency, to refuse the little cruelties that some offices trade like currency, to leave meetings with your integrity intact even if the agenda remains. And every such choice is a stitch in a blanket that will cover your body at midnight, because the conscience sleeps best under fabric it has woven, and you can feel the difference even now as you adjust the sheets. The heart recalling the moments you did not sell it, the moments you did not add noise to the common air, the moments you cut the engine of gossip and coasted home in silence. And perhaps you are weary from work that keeps slipping through your fingers like sand. Contracts fragile, hours unstable, the gig economy math that asks everything and offers a handful of coins. And right livelihood sits down beside that fatigue like a friend and says, "You are not lazy. You are tired from bending around systems shaped against the humane body. Let us plan one gentle change at a time. A new skill, a small shift in schedule, a conversation with someone who can open a door, a union of 2 or 3 colleagues who agree to name what hurts and ask for what helps. Because livelihood is not a private island. It is communal shoreline, and we reclaim it together. And while we reclaim, we rest. We refuse to let the money weather dictate whether we can sleep. We refuse a myth that only the worthy deserve softness, because no one performs their way into a right to rest. It is a birthright that supports the work of repairing the world. And when the mind plays the late-night theater of numbers, budgets, balances, livelihood offers a 2-part lullaby. First, the clean arithmetic of actual steps you can take in daylight, written on paper so the mind can put down the chalk. Second, the vow to stop beating the horse of the body for what belongs to broader change. To say to yourself, I will work for a fairer world in the morning, and tonight I will let the nervous system bathe in quiet so I have strength to do that. And this vow is not denial. It is strategy, the way a farmer sleeps before harvest, the way a nurse naps between shifts, the way an artist closes the studio to let the wet paint settle into itself, because rest is part of the work, and the work is part of the path. And as you breathe, feel how right livelihood extends beyond job title to the economy of attention and consumption, to the micro trades you make with your time and your gaze, which advertisers petition like kings, and ask gently, what am I buying with my scrolling? What am I selling with my outrage? Is the market I nourish one that blooms or one that bleeds? And at night you can choose to unsubscribe from the dealers of agitation, to dim the marketplaces that never close, to free your senses from the auction block, to cultivate an inner cottage industry of small crafts that come quiet reading, a simple instrument, stitches of gratitude in a notebook, a practice of noticing the moon's phases and letting them index your pace, and these side economies of meaning pay in currencies. The bank does not count lowered shoulders, quieter dreams, the slow accumulation of dignity. And perhaps you worry that stepping toward right livelihood means abandoning ambition or refusing beauty or starving the parts of you that love excellence. But the path does not ask you to shrink. It asks you to aim, to let excellence be in service of life rather than status, to let ambition be spacious rather than hungry, to let beauty be nourishment rather than narcotic. And when you orient this way, you will find that your craft, your skill, your study, your bright curiosity all become allies of rest, because they wear clean edges that do not cut you at midnight, and they give you this satisfying tiredness of a good day, the kind of fatigue that releases rather than clings. And if you are in a season where livelihood means caring for elders or children, unpaid and unglamorous, right livelihood rises to bless that labor as holy, reminding you that economies exist beneath economies, that the exchange of tenderness is a currency older than coin, that rocking a child or lifting a spoon to an aging mouth is a form of work that makes the world possible. And if you can, you build scaffolding around that work, shared duties, schedules that leave air in the week, moments that are only yours, so that service does not erase self. And in the night you speak to yourself with the respect you deserve. You did real work, invisible maybe to ledger books, but indelible in human time and your body. Hearing this respect loosens, because the most exhausting posture is not effort but self. And right livelihood refuses erasure. It asks you to remain visible to yourself, to keep your name on the roll of those who matter, even if the office door is a kitchen doorway or a hospital corridor or a street where you sell flowers at dawn. And when your job is indeed a place with fluorescent lights and complicated politics, the path offers etiquette that becomes pillows later. Do not contribute to deceit. Do not traffic in humiliation. Do not outsource your conscience to a brand. Speak up when the silence is violence, and keep quiet when speech would only perform heat. Teach your calendar to include tiny Sabbaths, even on busy days. 3 breaths at the window. 10 minutes at lunch, where food is only food and not a spreadsheet. A walk around the block where you name 5 trees and 3 kinds of cloud. And these small withdrawals from the bank of stress earn interest long after dark. And there is also the body's manual for sustainable work, written in muscles and fascia rather than ink. Sit like an animal, not a statue. Stand like a tree, not a post. Let the eyes look far every hour so they remember horizon. Stretch the wrists that feed machines. Release the tongue that holds tension for secrets. Drink water because blood is a river and you are its banks. And each of these is a workplace policy you can enact even if the boss never signs. And at the end of the day, mark the transition with a ritual that tells the animal the hunt is over, a shower that falls like forgiveness, clothes that say home now, a candle whose flame is a small sun setting safely inside, a phrase spoken at the door. I leave work here, I carry wisdom. Not weightened if the mind insists on carrying a file into the bedroom. You give it a drawer in a notebook on the dresser. You write the few lines that cannot be left loose. You promise to return at a specific hour tomorrow. And you keep your promise. For broken promises, keep eyes open, while kept promises are sand for the eyelids. And as you lie down, consider the story of money itself, the way it wants to be either tyrant or tool, and right livelihood takes its crown and turns it into a handle, using money to carry the things that nourish, shelter, art, medicine, time without letting it dictate the rhythm of the heart. And if scarcity's ghost sits beside you, you can speak to it as to a weathered ant who has known hunger. Thank you for your vigilance. We have candles and walls tonight. I will work wisely in the morning. Now let me rest. And the ghost, respected, often quiets. And in that quiet you feel the deeper economy beat. Breath in, breath out, no invoice, no debt, only exchange. And you realize that every right breath is right livelihood, the way your lungs barter with the sky. Taking in, giving back, neither hoarding nor starving. And this is the template for the work of your life: to take in what helps, to give back what heals, to refuse the false market where speed buys dignity. And in that refusal, you become oddly efficient, because clarity wastes less time than confusion. And kindness reduces rework, and honesty prevents the interest charges of shame. And all this thrift shows up at night as extra minutes of quiet before sleep, as a spine that does not flinch when you remember the meeting, as dreams that are not courtroom dramas, but long walks by a river that looks suspiciously like your own breath. And if you are between jobs or between identities, that tender borderland where you cannot yet name what you do, right livelihood keeps you from falling into the pit of worthlessness by giving you a task older than employment. Keep the temple of your days clean. Wake gently, move the body as a prayer. Learn something small each day. Help one being if you can. Refuse to speak unkindly to yourself. Orient toward work that does not make you a stranger to your own eyes. And trust that, even now, in the meantime, your life is not on hold. It is ripening, and sleep is part of that ripening. The darkness a kill that hardens the glaze of a pot that will hold tomorrow's labor. And so, as the room cools, and the fan draws its circle of wind, and your hands learn the language of stillness, feel the relief of aligning how you earn with how you yearn. Feel the way the heart ceases to haggle and simply opens like a door at dusk. Feel the way the world is asking for your gifts without asking for your soul. And promise both of you, the one who works and the one who rests, that you will keep negotiating in the direction of tenderness, that you will keep choosing trades that let you sleep, that you will keep believing there is a livelihood that is also a liveliness, and that you deserve it because you are a being who breathes, and breath is the first business of a life worth living. Right effort is the kindness of steadying without straining, the art of doing just enough and no more so that goodness has a fair chance to grow, and at night it becomes a soft discipline, a tender craft of arranging the conditions for rest while refusing the old habit of wrestling sleep into submission. Because true effort is not a clenched jaw but a clear direction repeated gently, again and again, like oars dipping in a moonlit lake. And you can feel it now as you lie down and choose one simple thing to do with care. Perhaps the lengthening of the outbreath until it becomes a ribbon of silk, or the slow sweep of attention from crown to soles like warm rain. Because right effort does not scatter itself across 1,000 fixes. It picks a wholesome groove and lets the mind settle there. And in the Buddha's old language, the 4 right efforts hum like a lullaby, to prevent unwholesome states from arising, to abandon those that have arisen, to cultivate wholesome states, and to guard the ones already blooming. And in the ecology of sleep, these become practical gestures. First, prevent shuna, gentle boundary against late screens and stimulants and spirals of argument. Not from fear or rule, but from affection for the animal that needs darkness and quiet to fold its wings. And so the lamp dims, the phone rests far away like a well-fed sparrow. The room learns hush. You decide not to read the news under the covers. You decide not to rehearse the courtroom of tomorrow. And prevention is already a relief, a hedge around the little garden of the night. Then abandonment, the art of letting go of the weeds that have crept in anyway. The tight sentence, I never sleep, the jagged replay of the meeting, the worry that wears tomorrow's clothes in your bed. And abandonment is not a violent ripping, but a loosening grip. Hands opening to let the weed fall back to earth as you breathe it out through the soles. As you lay it on the floorboards like an old coat. As you whisper to the mind, thank you for trying, not now, we will talk at dawn. And each time the weed returns, you repeat the motion like tight, gentle, precise, faithful, until the body learns the choreography and helps, sending a wave of heaviness through the limbs like a friend closing curtains. And then cultivation, the luscious middle of the practice where you plant what soothes, gratitude counted like beads, kindness phrases whispered to the busy places, a visualization of moonlight collecting in a bowl at the throat and pouring down through the chest. The small vow that even if sleep is slow, you will remain friendly with yourself. The chosen anchor, a spot of cool air at the nostrils. The slight rocking of the ribs that you tend the way a lighthouse keeper tends flame. And cultivation is pleasure, simple and clean, because it asks very little and gives very much, making the mind a meadow instead of a marketplace. And finally, guarding keeping the good once it has arrived, which at night looks like refusing to poke holes in your calm with late self-critique, refusing to jolt the body back to attention with a last-minute dose of worry, keeping the temple quiet once the incense has begun to sweeten the air. And if a sound enters, you fold it into the practice. Oh, that is rain. Oh, that is a car. Oh, that is my own heart. And guarding is not tense, it is tender. The way you would shelter a candle cupped inside your hands while walking through a gentle wind. And right effort sings through all of this the refrain of not too tight, not too loose, because the strings of the lute of the body must be tuned for music. And you tune by sensing, do I strain, then soften? Do I slump, then brighten? Do I wander, return with warmth? Do I fixate, widen like sky? And to help the tuning you might imagine a dial, not a switch. A smooth round dimmer you can turn one notch toward stillness with each exhale, and another notch with each small act of released jaw, brow, tongue. Belly effort here is the sweetness of continuity rather than the drama of conquest. It is the long game. The trust that little by little is the only way the deep animals of the body agree to change. And you can build little by little into your ritual as time signatures, perhaps counting 4 on the inhale and 6 on the exhale for a song or two, then dropping the counting and letting the tide keep time, perhaps tracing the breath from nose to throat to chest to belly to pelvis and back up. 1 circuit, 2 circuits, until attention has a path to walk instead of a field to get lost in. Perhaps repeating a single kind phrase with each out-breath, let go, beloved. Let go until the phrase dissolves into the action it names and the action dissolves into a feeling of being carried. And if rest remains shy, right effort protects you from the second arrow, the injury of hating the wakefulness, by offering a simple and radical reframe. This, too, can be practice. This, too, can be healing. I can lie in the dark and be washed by breath. I can soak in quiet like a stone in a stream and be changed by contact. And in that permission, the body often yields. The organism hears there is no emergency in staying awake, and therefore no need to stay awake to watch for emergency. Vigilance sighs and goes off duty, and effort returns to its original meaning energy, placed in service of what matters, so what matters now. Tenderness, repair, silence that is full, and the mind loves a visual, and the heart loves a metaphor. So give them one. See a flock of birds settling on a late tree. The way the air is noisy for a moment, and then suddenly becomes a single dark shape against the dusk, and feel your thoughts like that, a settling, a soft congregation. not won by force, but by a shared gravity of home. And home is breath. Home is the bed's quiet geography. Home is the rhythm you are building with your simple, continuous gestures, and right effort also knows when to stop. The subtlest mastery, the moment you feel the shift from helpful guidance into fussy management, from true practice into anxious tinkering, and you bow and lay the tools down because the gate is open and the horse knows the way to water. And then effort becomes trust. A glide instead of a push, a leaf riding current. And as you rest on that glide, something brightens inside. The understanding that this path asks for partnership, not performance, asks you to cooperate with the nervous system's own wisdom, not boss it around. Asks you to be as patient with yourself as you would be with a child learning to float. Hands under the ribcage, breath like a tide under the hands, voice like a small shore saying yes, yes, yes. And if you wake in the night, right effort starts again, not as a punishment, but as a reprise. Return to the anchor, reduce inputs, choose kindness. Add a teaspoon of structure account, a phrase, a placement of the palms and wait. Because waiting with care is also effort, and it is beautiful. And in the morning, the fruit of this invisible labor will be a quiet steadiness you carry into the day. A capacity to turn the same 4 efforts toward waking life, preventing the scroll of harm in your speech, abandoning the flare of anger that wants to travel, cultivating generosity as reflex, guarding your joy from corrosion, and the circle will feed itself. Night blessing day and day blessing night. And the body, remembering this reciprocity, will grow more willing to yield at dusk. Because it trusts you now. It trusts that your effort is friendly, that you do not ask it to leap through flaming hoops for the circus of productivity, that you will not tear it from rest for petty reasons, that you will pause at the threshold each evening and arrange the altar a glass of water within reach, the window cracked for a thread of cool, the sheet smoothed, the phone quiet, the mind bowed, and then you will do the simplest work in the world and the hardest. Continue with love. Continue with love. Continue with love until continuation is unnecessary and love is doing the continuing for you. And you are already across, asleep, adrift in a softness you did not wrestle for, but welcomed with the deft, tender, persevering hands of right effort. Right mindfulness is the art of remembering to remember, the steady returning to what is truly here with a gaze that is warm and exact, and at night it becomes the lantern you set upon the low table of your breath, so the room of experience is softly lit from within, not with interrogation but with affection, because mindfulness is not a spotlight that glares. It is a moon that reveals edges without scaring the animal of the body. And you can feel it now as you lie down and invite attention to sit beside you like a kind friend who says, "Tell me everything." And everything begins with the simplest thing, the rise and fall of your breathing. That faithful tide washing the shore of the ribs, cool on the in-breath at the nostrils, warmer on the out-breath at the upper lip, a small weather you can trust. And you let awareness ride it the way a leaf rides a stream, not trying to steer, only staying close. And as you stay close, the clutter of the day drifts to the edges like boats loosening at their moorings. And the harbor grows quiet, and you notice what mindfulness always notices when it is honest, that this body is a changing constellation, flickers of sensation appearing, blooming, fading, that the mind is a weather painter always at work on new clouds. That emotion is a tide made of salt and story, and that you are not trapped by any of it when you remember to look with kindness rather than clutch with fear. And so you begin the gentle survey that mindfulness loves. Not a military inspection, but a slow walk through a garden at dusk. Feet to crown and crown to feet, pausing wherever the plants are thirsty, feeling the weight of the heels, the soft architecture of the arches, the toes like small animals curling and uncurling, the calves unwinding their spirals of effort, the knees remembering they are hinges, not locks, the thighs sighing like fields after rain, the pelvis heavy like a bowl set down, the belly rising with the moon, the chest a window opening and closing, the shoulders releasing their secret negotiations with gravity, the arms letting go of invisible luggage, the palms warm with an old, wordless intelligence, the neck lengthening like a reed, the jaw unclasping its briefcases of the day, the tongue resting like a leaf on a pond, the cheeks smoothing, the brow unknitting its weather map, the eyelids growing pleasantly heavy, and in each place you do the same thing. Notice, name, nurture. A three-step blessing whispered inside here is sensation, here is its tone. Here is kindness, neither clinging to ease nor resenting ache, but learning the great middle tenderness of allowing. And mindfulness becomes a weaving then, threads of breath and body and heart crisscrossing into a fabric that can hold your weight. And because the mind will wander, it is its nature to wander the way bees wander flowers. You make a home generous enough for returning. You set no trap at the door. You keep no ledger of absences. Each time you notice, you simply say, "Oh, here you are, welcome back." And that welcome is the hinge upon which the whole practice turns. For the nervous system believes tones more than words, and the tone of welcome teaches it safety faster than any lecture. And safety invites sleep, the way a nest invites a bird. And if strong emotions arrive, as sometimes they do, at the hour when lights dim and protective noise fades grief, like a tide pulling at the roots of the heart, anger like a red moth beating at the ribs, longing like a field empty of footsteps, you remember that mindfulness is not a bouncer but a host. It checks no one's name at the door. It simply shows each guest to a proper seat, labels them feeling, 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 notes their flavors heavy, hot, empty notes, their urges clench, speak. Flian sits nearby with breath for company so that nothing has to act itself out to be seen. And in this simple witnessing, the edges often soften, the center unknots. The guest becomes less guest and more weather passing through. And you learn in your bones that presence can survive any storm because presence is the sky that holds it. And the sky sleeps well. And mindfulness by night is also a way of arranging attention so it does not skate the surface of experience forever but learns to settle. So you choose an anchor and offer it your patience. The place where breath brushes the nostrils, the swell at the belly, the expansion at the lower ribs. Or if breath is shy, you choose contact points, the weight of heels, calves, pelvis, shoulder blades, sculphy stones on the riverbed of now. And you touch each stone lightly with awareness as the river of time moves. And because the mind loves rhythm, you might give it a small groove to travel, counting 1 on the inhale, 2 on the exhale, up to 10 and back to 1. Not as a contest, but as a lullaby for the prefrontal drummer that keeps tapping long after the concert ends. And when numbers grow fuzzy, you smile. It means the drummer is dozing. And you let the counting fall away like a scarf sliding from the shoulder. And if thoughts grow loud again, you wrap the scarf back on, gentle. Because mindfulness is iterative, generous with repetition. And repetition is the mother of ease. And there is also the dear practice of labeling, a soft vocabulary for the mind's movies so you don't drown inside them. You whisper, thinking, remembering, planning, rehearsing, judging, and the label is not a scold. It is a bell that calls you back to the pew of your breath, where the choir of sensation is still singing. And the sermon is always the same and always new. This is how it is now. And if this is how it is now, let us befriend it. And befriending is not resignation. It is the most active kindness you can offer yourself in the dark. The way you would soothe a child who cannot sleep by saying, "I'm here. I'm here," instead of demanding an explanation. And mindfulness can ride the breath into subtler rooms when you are ready, listening for the small pause after the exhale where nothing is required, the tiny cove where the boat rests without oars, and if you linger there safely, attention begins to taste the flavor of quiet itself, the way still water tastes of stone and sky, and that flavor is deeply nourishing. It tells the ancient mammal you inhabit that the savannah is calm, the den is safe, the stars are in their places, and the chemistry follows the story, heart rate easing, muscles digestion resuming its gentle housekeeping, immune cells humming their moonlit rounds. And all because you remembered to remember what was already true. You are lying down in a room where the only task is to be here kindly, and no predator is asking for your resume of failures. And if the predator you fear lives inside the critic that hisses, "You should have," you never mindfulness invites it to, offers it a chair and a cup of warm breath, calls it thinking, calls it protecting, thanks it for its exhausting service, and gives it the night off. For even guards sleep when the gates are strong, and the gate of this practice is simple steadiness, the fidelity of attention returning to the chosen now. And fidelity is sweet to the body, it reads as love, and the body rests where it is loved. And because mindfulness is also memory in the deep sense, the recollection of the path you invite into awareness, the teachings that cradle rest, impermanence, not self, and the sufficiency of the present. You notice the itch that seemed urgent fade just by being seen. You'll notice the thought you were sure would devour you dissolve into the general dusk. You notice the sense of a solid you soften into a field of sensations and awareness that holds them, and nothing collapses when you stop gripping your idea of yourself. In fact, there is more room to breathe, and room is what sleep loves most. And mindfulness can be textured with gratitude without becoming syrup, simply naming 2 or 3 small reliables: the coolness of sheet against shin, the clean taste of water, the roof that says no to rain, and in the naming you feel how attention changes the temperature of experience, not by denial but by balance, because the mind's bias toward threat needs a friend who remembers the ordinary mercies, and gratitude is that friend, and it pairs well with compassion, which in this hour is not a grand project but a soft stance toward your own weariness, the willingness to tuck yourself in with the same gentleness you would offer someone you love, the choice to stop interrogating your fatigue for a reason and start bathing it in breath. And mindfulness also extends beyond the skin. It hears the house breathe, the world turn, a dog far away giving the night its brief opinion, a car sighing down the road, rain knitting roof to sky. And instead of taking these as interruptions, you recognize them as teachers of suckness. This is happening, just this, and with every this named and allowed, the mind's need to defend relaxes. Because reality no longer feels like an opponent, it feels like company, and sleep arrives more easily to a being who feels accompanied. And if images help you, mindfulness lends them without clinging. You might imagine a moon set gently in the bowl of the pelvis, pouring cool light up through the spine with each inhale and letting it spill like milk through the chest with each exhale. You might picture a wide meadow inside the skull and thoughts as deer moving through the tall grass, shy. You might see the breath as ink writing and rewriting the word peace on the inside of the ribs until the letters blur into a softness that cannot be read but can be lived. And whatever image you borrow, let it be light enough to float and humble enough to vanish when presence grows strong enough to stand without it. Because the aim of mindfulness is not decoration but dwelling. And dwelling is what you are learning with every return to breath, to sensation, to the tender truth of now. And if you rouse in the middle dark hours, eyes opening to the ceiling's pale geometry, let mindfulness be your first visitor. Not worry, feel the body's position, name 3 points of contact. Find the breath where it is most obvious, lengthen the exhale by a whisper. Stroke the mind with a phrase, may I rest, may I be at ease. And if the orchestra of thought begins to tune up, you can listen without joining, hearing the strings complain and the brass boast and the percussion count schedules, noting, until the conductor, kind attention lowers the baton and there is only the room again, and the inhale and the exhale, and the small pause that keeps all of this humane. And what grows from this night practice is not only sleep, but a way of meeting daylight, because mindfulness learned in the dark walks with you into morning, teaching you to taste the first sip of tea, to actually feel the warm water on the wrists, to hear a bird as not background but blessing, to notice the spark before anger becomes a fire and choose another path, to catch the sorrow before it hardens and offer it a place to soften, to remember in the middle of a conversation that you can feel your feet and breathe, and therefore you can choose words that heal. And each such choice sends a letter back to midnight saying thank you for the training. I used it, and midnight replies with more gentleness when you return, because the loop is complete and trust is built. And so tonight, as the bed learns your shape and you learn the bed's, as the darkness becomes a velvet container and not a void, let right mindfulness be your quiet companion, not a taskmaster, but a tender, practical art. The remembering of the only doorway there has ever been, this breath, this body, this heart, and every time you walk through it, you find the same room waiting, furnished with enough, lit by a moon that does not burn, and there, in that room, sleep finds you because you found yourself first. Right concentration is the art of gathering the scattered petals of attention into a single fragrant bloom. The quiet discipline of letting the mind rest on one kindly object until its turbulence settles and a clear lake appears. And at night, this becomes the tenderest craft. The way you coax your awareness from the busy market of the day to a simple candle in a simple room. And you sit beside that candle without bargaining for results. Because concentration is not a trap for sleep, but a pathway to ease. An alignment that lets the gates of rest open by themselves. And you can feel the approach as you lie down and choose your one star to follow. Perhaps the breath rising and falling at the belly like a cradle rocked by an invisible hand. Perhaps the faint coolness at the tip of the nose that greets every inhale. Perhaps the low hum of a fan or the distant lull of rain. And once chosen, you honor it. You place the mind there as one would place a small bird in a nest, nothing forceful, nothing fussy. Then you keep returning, kindly, as many times as it takes. Because right concentration is the opposite of scolding. It is devotion. It is the patience of a river carving a canyon. And as you return, the mind begins to learn the taste of unbroken attention. A sweetness less dramatic than excitement, but deeper than distraction. the sweetness of being wholly somewhere. And the body hears this fidelity and responds. The jaw lets go of its old negotiations. The shoulders surrender their armor. The heart steadies into a low drum. And the nervous system turns down its lanterns one by one, as if a careful keeper were making the stations safe for night. And you, grateful, continue watching the single object with soft eyes that do not stare but bathe. And here the old image of the Buddha's Eightfold path becomes immediate. Concentration is not an escape tunnel, but a homecoming. The way we land in the only place where healing actually occurs. This breath, this pulse, this moment, and when the mind wanders, and it will wander, because wandering is to the mind what flight is to birds. You do not make a scene. You simply notice where it went. You bow to the thought or memory or plan. You thank it for its brief theater, and you return. This returning, the sacred hinge upon which stability turns. And little by little, the distance between wander and return grows shorter until it is a gentle sway. And then shorter still until attention begins to rest as a cat rests in a rectangle of sun, with the quiet dignity of enough. And in that rest, the single object begins to unfold its hidden richness. The breath no longer just air, but a tapestry of micro-sensations. The cool kiss at the nostrils, the widening of the ribs, the silk slip of diaphragm, the subtle pause like a held note after the exhaled detail, a petal, and all of them together, the bloom you chose to tend. And tending grows simpler as habits unwind. The mind no longer needing novelty to feel alive. Discovering that aliveness was never in the novelty, but in the intimacy of attention. And intimacy deepens to absorption the way dusk deepens to night. Not by flipping a switch, but by thickening the dark with kindness. And if you wish, you can guide yourself through the 4 soft rooms of collectedness. The old texts name without turning them into trophies. First, the gathering, where attention becomes steady and joy bubbles like a spring because you have finally come home to one thing. Then the refinement, where joy grows quieter and ease spreads like warm light through a house. Then the intimacy, where the body feels light and pliant and attention sits like a candle's flame in a room with no draft. Then the equanimity, where even ease is no longer a project and you are simply present. Wide and simple, like moonlight across water. And if these rooms do not appear with their signs tonight, there is no failure. There is only the returning, because the path is not a contest, but a companionship with your own capacity to settle. And that companionship is already the medicine your cells were asking for. They crave the chemistry of steadiness, the way dry ground craves rain, and with steadiness, physiology obeys. The parasympathetic river rises, the circulation purls. The immune artisans begin their quiet sculpting, and somewhere in the deep, the lymphatic tides wash the brain clean. And all this happens because you are doing the simplest thing well, resting the mind on one soft object with affection and persistence. And when a thought about tomorrow barges into the room wearing urgent clothes, you greet it without standing up. Please leave your shoes at the door. We are quiet here, I'll meet you in daylight. And it blushes and sits down or leaves. And when a memory trails perfume through the door, you nod and return to the breath. Because nothing can be as interesting as the kind of peace you are brewing, which is not the peace of victory, but the peace of alignment. An alignment is the body and mind saying the same word at the same time, now. And to help the brewing, you might choose a gentle structure that keeps attention from slipping, counting breaths from 1 to 10 and back to 1 like a bead circle, or tracing triangle breathing where the inhale draws one side, the exhale draws another, and the pause completes the figure, When the structure has done its work, you let it melt. You keep only the taste of steadiness and the hum of ease, and should rest remain coy. Let concentration take the shape of a body scan so slow it feels like moonlight walking. Crown to brows, to eyes, to cheeks, to jaw, to throat, to chest, to belly, to pelvis, to thighs, to knees, to calves, to ankles, to feet. Tiny pauses like commas at each place. A long sentence of surrender that teaches the nervous system a grammar of release. And at the feet you can imagine roots growing briefly into the bed, exhaling whatever static the day left in you. Inhaling the cool dark of night like a plant drinks dew, and then return to the breath again, the faithful star. The one teacher who never charges tuition, and as the minutes pass you may notice a dissolving of edges. The way the sense of me seems less like a statue and more like a field, porous and soft, and the single object becomes not a small rock in a large sea, but the entire sea holding a small rock. And in that reversal, the mind rests even more deeply because there is nothing left to guard. Attention is no longer standing sentry at a narrow gate. It is the courtyard itself, open and safe. And sleep loves courtyards more than gates. It steps in through any arch. It sits by any fountain where the water is steady. And your breath is steady now. Your mind is a fountain with no need of applause. And if the old superstition darts in that concentration is striving, that softening will make you slack you, can smile at it as one smiles at a child convinced the moon is following them, sweet and mistaken, because the truth is paradox and gentle, right? Concentration is the most effortless effort when you get the angle of approach right. It is leaning your attention against a structure that can hold it, the breath, the hum, the pulse, and letting gravity finish the job. And gravity knows what to do with animals who are finally done performing. It draws you down into a temple where the chanting is silence and the incense is the faint coolness at your nostrils, and the altar is the whole body breathing as one. And here you might add a phrase to anchor feeling to focus, a whispered let go on the exhale, a quiet be here on the inhale, or simply a soundless yes that rides both in and out. And the phrase becomes less word and more tone, and the tone becomes less tone and more warmth, and the warmth becomes less warmth and more. A sense that the dark is not empty but full of hands that hold. And you are held, and being held, you stop bracing. And not bracing you float, and floating you forget to check if you are floating. And in that forgetting the path does the walking for you. And between wake and sleep, there is a meadow where concentration becomes dream's doorway. You cross it with the same soft fidelity you practiced on the breath and dreams. Meet you not as storms, but as caravans of images, carrying messages you will unpack in the morning or not. Because nothing urgent is required now, only the repetition of kindness woven into focus. And if you wake in the seamos, when clocks make long shadows and the mind tries to rebuild the market, you do what you know, pick one star, return, return, return. Cut fuel to the engines of rumination by placing attention where experience is simple and close. And if the star dims, pick another, the heartbeat in the ear against the pillow, the silent counting that erases itself as it goes. The image of a lake holding a moon that will not fall even when wind passes. And keep company with this one thing until the body remembers the script. The eyelids grow pleasantly heavy, the muscles lengthen like ropes gone slack, and eventually concentration tips you back into sleep the way a mother tips a cradle and the world tips into dawn. And in the morning, the fruit of this nightcraft is not only rest, but a mind that knows how to stay, a presence that walks through daylight with a steadier gaze, less seduced by every shout, more loyal to what matters. able to hold a task without clutching, able to listen without hunting for your turn to speak, able to return when you wander. For concentration is not just for monks and midnight. It is for emails and conversations, and the way you watch a child describe a cloud and actually see it. And tonight you are learning the root of that skill in the softest classroom, with darkness for walls and breath for chalk and body for desk. And the lesson plan is one line written again and again until it writes itself. Place the mind, keep it kindly. Return when it wanders, soften as you settle. Trust the river that carries everything home, and home is here, and here is enough. And enough is the lullaby the whole world has been trying to remember as it runs. And you are remembering it now with each unbroken moment on the simplest thing, until even the simplest thing dissolves and only quiet remains. And the quiet is wide, and within that width, sleep. Not to loose as you adjust the throttle through lunch and lull, breathing into the urge to bolt, lengthening the exhale when the mind craves sugar or fireworks. And the afternoon's dense weather grows penetrable with right mindfulness. Feeling your feet under the desk, noticing breath like a soft rope tying you to the moment. Tasting water, tasting language, tasting quiet between songs. And by nightfall, right concentration returns as a gentle ritual, perhaps a candle. Perhaps 8 breaths, counted on the fingers of each hand funneling. The day's rain into the river that leads you to the shore of sleep. And Thursday brings undertow, the week's ambition running ahead of its legs. So you slow the pace with right view, seeing the engine of craving and smiling at its earnestness, thanking it for trying to protect you from time, telling it you will arrive where you arrive. And right intention leans toward harmlessness, steering you around tiny acts of self-violence, skipping lunch, ignoring thirst, doom-scrolling as if it were devotion, and right speech becomes a bomb you place on the mouths of your inner committee, addressing the critic and the panicker with bowing kindness thank you. Not now, and outwardly you practice exact praise, specific and sober, the kind that strengthens the bones of a team, while right action chooses focus over frenzy, finishing one thing so well it does not return to haunt you at midnight, returning one small kindness from earlier in the week with interest. And right livelihood expands beyond work to the economy of attention as you ask what you are buying with your gaze, unsubscribing from the merchants of agitation for one day, feeding yourself on sentences that carry light. And right effort starts to feel like friendship, a steadying hand at your elbow, no drama, no ultimatums, keeping you on the sidewalk of your choosing as traffic surges by. Right mindfulness meets the sunset with a simple practice list: 5 colors you can see, 4 sounds, 3 textures, 2 scents, 1 taste, so the senses gather like birds on a wire, wings folded. And right concentration closes the night with a slow body scan, moonlight moving through you with its unhurried grammar until language itself dissolves and the body remembers that it is forgiven for being a body. And Friday, bright with the ache of almost, tempts you into sprinting the last mile. But the path is not a race, and right view sets your cadence, noting the mind's bargain: if I finish, then I can rest, and answering with a kinder proposition. Rest is the way, not the reward, and right intention tilts toward celebration that harms nothing. Planning joy that does not cost tomorrow, a meal with laughter, a walk that returns you to your legs, music that mends, and right speech plays lightly on the tongue, the week's heaviness losing half its weight when you tell someone the truth of your gratitude, when you apologize without embroidery where needed, when you let silence be your best sentence. And right actions detail work continues. Wrap up, hand off. Clean up. So the weekend version of you is not a janitor for Friday's storms. And right livelihood on this day is remembering that the spreadsheets and sawdust and salabi point beyond themselves to beating hearts. That usefulness is love in a humble suit, and right effort is the long exhale that releases your shoulders from the courtroom of achievement. You did enough, more than you know. Now leave the office literal or in theory with a clear threshold. And right mindfulness puts a hand on the doorknob of evening and feels the cool metal. Enters the night as if entering a shrine, unhurried, shoes off, phone down. And right concentration is a soft lantern on the porch of sleep. You sit with it until moth thoughts tire of circling and the light can be safely carried into dreams. And Saturday arrives with its wide field, and you feel the animals stretch inside you. And right view keeps the freedom from collapsing into aimlessness by recalling what nourishes and what empties. On an ordinary Monday, you wake before the alarm and let the room be your first teacher, a pale square of dawn on the wall, the hush that has not yet been bargained away. And you remember the path, not as a distant pilgrimage, but as the way you set your feet on the floor. Right view arriving with the first full breath as you name the simple truth of morning. This is a body waking. This is a mind that can choose end. You choose tenderness over rush by drinking water slowly, by opening the window to let the city's soft engine fold into your breath, by placing one hand on your belly and one on your heart to declare a truce between effort and ease. And with right intention, you aim the day. May my actions harm no one. May my speech soothe. May I carry less than I did yesterday. And as you wash your face, you practice right speech with yourself, swapping the old verdicts for quiet blessings. Good morning, friend. We will go gently. We will be honest. We will pause before heat. And breakfast becomes right livelihood in miniature. Food chosen not as fuel for a war, but as a vote for steadiness. Oats that hold you, fruit that remembers the sun. Tea that warms a corridor down the throat where gratitude walks. And while you commute or cross a hallway to your desk, you offer the world your first right action. A door held, a message answered with patience. A refusal to join the gossip that gnaws at the edges of belonging. And when mid-morning clatter rises, you let right effort guide the oars, not flailing through waves, but stroking evenly, one task, one breath, one small return to the present. When you notice the mind galloping ahead to a meeting that hasn't chosen you yet. And at lunch, you practice right mindfulness by taste alone, noticing texture and temperature, honoring the animal that chews and swallows and knows when to stop. And late afternoon, you feel the tug of fatigue and choose right concentration in a humble form. 3 minutes with your eyes closed, breath like a cat curling into your lap, the world continuing without your hands. And Monday evening, you lay a simple bridge into night, a short walk that lets the body be rinsed by air. A lamp turned lower, a sentence written in your notebook, where the day thanks you for not abandoning it to perfection. And Tuesday wakes with a brighter churn, but you keep the path close by, mapping small waypoints. Right view repeats itself in the mirror. All things change, even this hurried mood, even this inbox mountain. And you aim right intention toward patience. Like a compass pointed to a north you cannot see but can trust, telling your calendar no with the same kindness as yes, making space so you do not step on your own heart. And Tuesday invites right speech to the meeting table, where you try to make clarity your music, saying less and meaning more, naming the elephant without poking it, speaking praise where it will water courage, And when the inevitable friction comes, you lean into right action by refusing to pass along the heat, leaving the room if you must, breathing a corridor of cool through the body, writing the draft. You will send after your pulse returns to a reasonable drum, and the priceless, ordinary work you do becomes right livelihood in motion. When you remember the humans who will be touched by today's lines of code, or cleaned counters, or lesson plans, or lifted boxes, each task a thread in a fabric you may never see finished. And because threads tangle, you bring right effort again, small and smooth, a rhythm that shepherds attention back each time it leaps the fence. And in the evening, you let right mindfulness gather the day into your lap like laundry, feeling the weight of moments without judging their stains, noticing where you were brave and where you were brittle, making room for both. And right concentration becomes the last act before sleep, as you sit with the breath long enough for the ripples to slow, long enough for the pond to show you the moon it was holding all along. And Wednesday, the middle bone of the week, asks for spine, and you give it not by bracing but by aligning. Right view reminding you that every discomfort is both weather and teacher, the meeting's awkwardness, the child's tantrum, the train delay, each a station to practice not clinging and not pushing away. And you aim right intention toward generosity of time, letting someone merge into your lane, giving the cashier your eye as if it were a warm coin, bringing an extra snack because someone will forget theirs. And right speech becomes the art of the helpful no, the graceful boundary that keeps your later words sweet, because bitterness often blooms where we said yes against our own knowing. And right action unfolds as quiet competence, doing what you said you would do when you said you would do it, and doing it cleanly. And if you stumble, you repair swiftly, and all of this becomes right livelihood when you learn to look up from the grindstone, to recall that you are earning not just money but meaning, trading hours for a chance to be of use without losing yourself. And right effort whispers, not too tight, choosing the former like fruit at a market. And right intention writes a simple list, not as a tyrant, but as a friend. Move the body, touch the sun, make or mend one thing, connect with one being, leave room for wonder. And right speech becomes play, singing in the kitchen, laughing in the grocery line, telling the child or the neighbor or the tree what you truly see. And right action is hands-on today, sweeping, cooking, trimming, fixing, tending, the kind of motion that tells the nervous system it belongs to a village, even if the village is two souls and a cat. And right livelihood becomes stewardship as you spend and save with care, supporting the artisans and farmers and books that keep culture from collapsing into noise. And right effort is joyfully modest, choosing sustainable pacing over weekend heroics that leave Sunday in ruins. And right mindfulness is the lens you clean all day with small cloths of attention, watching the sky's slow cinema, tasting strawberries honestly, hearing your own footsteps on a path you almost forgot was near. And right concentration is a hammock of practice hung in the afternoon, a nap without apology, 15 minutes of breath watching on a bench, eyes half closed, the world continuing to be beautiful without your supervision. And you end the day with gratitude that does not need to be written to be real, though writing it will plant seeds for Monday's soil. And Sunday, the quiet bell asks for gentleness dressed as devotion. And right view gazes over the week the way one looks back down a trail from a small summit, seeing how far you walked without drama, where you stumbled and stood again, where you surprised yourself with patience. And right intention blesses the coming days with a vow that feels like silk and bone. May I aim toward what heals. May I refuse what corrodes. May I remember the path in the ordinary and right. Speech becomes prayer or poem, or the small, honest confession that empties the heart's pockets of lint. And right action is rest as a deed, not inertia but exquisite repair, stretching the body like dough under a kind palm, soaking in water that remembers rivers, cooking slowly, visiting a friend or your own neglected corner with flowers. And right livelihood is rechosen in this spaciousness as you ask what you will give yourself to this week, without breaking faith with your life. Perhaps drawing a boundary in the calendar around mornings, perhaps loosening an expectation that was strangling joy, perhaps writing an email that moves you 1 inch closer to work that lets you sleep. And right effort simplifies itself to 3 words, little by little, and you practice them in the afternoon by tidying a drawer, reading 10 pages, watering plants. Not because achievement is your god, but because order is a form of kindness the future can feel. And right mindfulness keeps vigil as dusk lowers, watching breath like a tide that has never once failed to return, touching the impulse to worry tomorrow into obedience and bowing it out of the room. And right concentration completes the circle with a longer sit or a slower body scan. One last steadying of the lamp, so that when night fully arrives, you are not surprised by its generosity. You meet it with empty hands and an unclenched jaw, and the week folds itself like a letter sealed with quiet, addressed to the version of you who will wake on Monday already carrying a map written in moonlight and ordinary gestures. The map that says the path is not somewhere else. It is the way you walk the days you already have. And when you forget tanned, you can begin again anywhere. With a breath, with a phrase, with a single kind act. And the week will open like a book to the same patient page. And you will read it by heart and fall asleep inside its margins, and rise to write the next line. Obstacles arrive like weather you did not order, sudden crosswinds in the hallway of the day, a knot of thought in the throat at midnight, a stone where the stream should be clear. And yet on this path, in this gentle house of practice, we learn to greet them not as enemies but as visiting teachers who prefer rough coats and blunt voices, who knock too loud and sometimes forget to remove their boots. And when they enter, we practice the hospitality that turns strangers into guides, beginning with right view, which remembers that every hindrance is both cause and condition, both echo and invitation, and that nothing which arises is permanent or personal, even if it feels like it wears our name. So when desire curls around the heart like ivy, bright and slick, promising that one more scroll, one more cookie, one more email will ferry you to the island of ease, you bow to it and whisper, I see you, wanting, 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 warm in the belly, bright in the eyes, quick in the fingers, and you feel how it rides the breath like a thief who stole a horse, fast and forward, and you let the exhale lengthen, a long, slow rope thrown over the horse's neck, and you lead it to water until wanting becomes simply energy, and energy can be braided into right effort, into the devotion of counting 10 breaths without departure, into the delicate craft of placing the phone in another room, like setting a bird free from the window it keeps striking, and desire blushes then because it wanted only to be seen. It wanted you to remember what you actually love, which is not the object but the aliveness beneath it. And when ill will arrives with its red mouth and hot fists, angry at the way the world refuses your script, angry at the face that wouldn't soften or the voice that wouldn't hear, you practice right intention by declining the invitation to rehearse revenge. You pour a small bowl of compassion like milk set outside for a feral cat and murmur, may I not add to harm. May they be freed from the conditions that make them sharp. May I keep my boundaries without sharpening my tongue tonight. And the body hears this mercy as cool shade on a burn. The shoulders release a notch, the jaw loosens its courtroom, and you discover that anger's secret curriculum was energy for protection and clarity for truth-telling, both of which you promise to bring to daylight without poison. And when sloth and torpor, that twin fog, roll in heavy and damp, draping the limbs with wet blankets, muting the colors of the world, you practice right action with the smallest of movements. Swiggle the toes, flex the calves, invite 3 deeper breaths like windows opened in a stale room. Sit up for 2 minutes to give the diaphragm room to sink. You learn that the fog is often a habit of collapse taught by long seasons of overwhelm, and that your kindness can retrain it, that you can befriend rest without drowning in it, that you can say to weariness, I will carry you to bed like a child, not like a sack of stones. And when restlessness and worry, those many-legged teachers, scatter across the inside of your skin at 3 a.m., rehearsing catastrophes in 3 languages, you bring right concentration as a sanctuary. Choose one sanctuary object, the breath at the tip of the nose, the weight of the body at the sacrum. A simple phrase like here nound, return to it each time the ants of thought march off with your sugar. And if they sting, you smile ruefully and say thank you for your labor, but tonight I am not hiring. And keep returning, because the nervous system trusts repetition more than eloquence. And when doubt slinks in with its gray coat and shrugs, what's the point? Your practice is nothing. You are nothing. You practice right speech with yourself, answering in a tone you would use for someone you love at midnight. Dear one, you do not have to solve your life tonight. You only have to breathe and rest. And in the morning we will take one kind step. And you might add a simple memory of fruit born by practice. How your breath steadied you yesterday. How silence held you during a rough call. How you placed your phone away and found your child's eyes again doubt. 2 was asking only for proof of tenderness, not a dissertation, and so the 5 hindrances become 5 mirrors where you can see your habit energies and bow. 5 bells that call you back to the monastery of the present, and their teachings braid with the Eightfold path until obstacle and path are not 2. For each hindrance has a medicine. Desire asks for mindfulness of impermanence and the sweetness already here. Ill will asks for goodwill and appropriate boundary. Sloth asks for energy balanced by ease. Restlessness asks for concentration and the long exhale. Doubt asks for remembering and the company of simple evidence. And because the body is the book where all this is written, you learn to read its margins at night, noticing the signatures of each visitor: desire as sparkle and forward lean, ill will as heat in the face and narrowing of the brow, sloth as heaviness and a grey curtain over the chest, restlessness as fizzing in the limbs and jittery eyes, doubts as coolness in the gut and melting posturing. You practice a gentle sequence. Name, normalize, nourish. Name it softly: craving, aversion, dullness, agitation, uncertainty. Normalize it by recalling that all humans meet these weathers. You are not broken, only weathered. And nourish by offering the balancing quality: gratitude, compassion, brightening, settling, remembering. And in doing so, you become your own teacher with the lineage of countless quiet nights standing behind you. And the room changes, not because the world did, but because the lamp inside burns warmer, steadier, kinder. And perhaps the most tender lesson obstacles bring is about scale. How the mind loves to make problems large and distant, unsleep, while the path invites small and close, actionable. And so when worry builds a cathedral of imaginary disasters, you switch to the chapel of the next breath. The sacrament of the hand on the chest, the prayer of a single muscle releasing its claim to history. And you watch enormity shrink to a size the heart can hold. And it holds. And in this holding, you learn to metabolize your own life, to digest it more slowly, which is what the dark has always asked us to do. And sometimes the teacher comes as grief. Not a hindrance, but a river that sweeps away furniture and leaves the house raw and echoing. And in grief, the path becomes a handrail, right view reminding you that love and loss are a braid, right intention urging you to be harmless with yourself while waves do their work, right speech giving you a small vocabulary that does not betray the size of your feeling this hurts. I miss you. I am tired, right action feeding you and walking you even when purpose is thin, right livelihood pausing perfection and letting survival be the day's masterpiece, right effort calibrating to spoon-sized tasks, right mindfulness sitting with salt water and not turning away, right concentration placing your attention on one simple mercy at a time, a bird on the wire, the warmth of tea, the rise and fall that keeps happening without being asked. And if grief keeps you up at night, you do not fight it with steel. You rock with it like a moon does tide, knowing that rocking is also travel. And travel brings you to mornings you could not imagine from the far shore. And sometimes the teacher is illness, the body's sudden strange alphabet, and the path's reply is slowness and care and the refusal to let identity be an armor that corrodes the skin. And sleep becomes medicine you take with reverence, preparing the altar of bed with the same respect you would take to a clinic. And if pain punctures your focus, you widen your field. Include the pain without making it the king. Surround it with breath and sound and the places in you that are not in pain, which there almost always are, and this inclusion is not resignation. It is power distributed wisely so the throne of attention does not become a prison. And sometimes the teacher is success, oddly sharp, filling the mind with sugar that burns fast and leaves it jittery. And then the path asks you to ground, to let applause pass through you like wind through reeds, to return to the simple chores, to wipe the counter, to thank those who walked with you, to remember that sleep loves humility because humility lets the body drop its role. And sometimes the teacher is loneliness, which echoes at bedtime louder than any traffic. And then right speech whispers, call a friend tomorrow, and right action sets a plan for belonging that is not self-betrayal. And tonight you place a palm on your heart and feel that there is at least one steady companion already here. And you are not entirely alone. And over months and miles of nights, the lesson clarifies. Obstacles are not detours from the path. They are the path revealing where it touches your particular life, where the old habits pinch and the new habits are shy. And with each meeting, your craft improves, your instrument tunes. Your inner weather station grows precise, and the world becomes friendlier, not because it is less wild, but because you carry a tent made of attention and a lamp made of breath. And you know how to pitch camp in a storm. And you know how to sleep on ground that is honest and uneven and still enough. And when dawn finds you after such a night, you rise with a softness that is not fragile, a strength that does not shout, and you carry into the day the memory of how difficulties became doors, how teachers arrived as clumsy guests and left as blessings, how even the mind that makes trouble also makes tea. And you pour for it first, and you drink together, and you smile, because the path is working on you from the inside out. polishing each rough stone you place in its river until it is smooth enough for dreams to cross barefoot. And each dream leaves its own teaching tucked under your pillow like a note. And the note says what obstacles have been saying all along in 100 dialects. Be gentle and return. Be honest and return. Be patient and return. Return to the breath, to the body, to the heart that is learning to be a field. And in that field, nothing is foreign, not even the thorn, and the thorn, seen clearly and held kindly, softens into a petal in time. And the night becomes not a gauntlet to run, but a garden to tend. And every weed, if tended with knowing hands, becomes food. We have walked a quiet circle together, lantern by lantern, from right views, soft honesty, to right intentions, kind aim. From right speeches, bomb, to right actions, steady hands. From right livelihoods, clean heart, to right efforts, gentle perseverance. From right mindfulness' warm attention, to right concentrations, single bright star. And along the way we learned to greet obstacles as teachers and the night as a temple where the ordinary breath is holy. Now, as you lie down and the day loosens like a knot that remembers how to untie itself, gather these threads into one shawl and wrap it around your ribs. May I meet this moment as it is. May I do no harm. May I rest in what is simple and true. May sleep find me because I have stopped chasing it, and let that be enough. Because enoughness is the gate to the meadow where the nervous system lays its armor in the grass, and the heart remembers its first language of yes. Let the room be small and the sky inside you be wide. Let the phone sleep in another country. Let the jaw unhook its old argument. Let the breath take the wheel and drive you toward the quiet coast we keep describing because it keeps saving us. Night after night, with its tide of repair and its moon of mercy. And know that this path is not a performance, but a companionship. Not a schedule to impress, but a way of being held by life as it actually is. If a worry climbs onto the bed, tuck it in with a phrase. If a memory knocks, pour it a thimble of compassion. If wakefulness lingers, let the practice be the destination and call that victory. And when sleep does arrive, as fog finds a field, bless it and surrender, and let the deep custodians do their tender work. And if this gentle traveling has steadied you, if your breath feels more like a friend, if your pillow feels lighter, if the dark feels kinder, come continue with us. Subscribe to Buddhism for Sleep so each evening you can return to a voice that remembers the way. 2 teachings that hum you across the threshold. 2 meditations that keep faith with your weary, luminous animal. Join this quiet circle where we practice a livable wisdom, small, repeatable mercies that change the weather inside, and by some shy miracle, the weather around us too. Click follow, ring the little bell, share this with someone whose shoulders deserve to drop, and meet us again tomorrow with your blanket, your breath, your good heart, nothing else required. May you drift and heal and wake soft. May the Eightfold path keep shining by your bedside like a low moon. And may you carry its light into morning with kindness on your tongue and steadiness in your step. Remembering always that rest is not the prize at the end of the road. It is the road becoming simple under your feet.